first, the homegrown humour of Kevin Day. Recently cast out of Radio 4, his travelling entourage indulged their audience in a little loose talk.
Well, I never thought I'd be introducing a TV comedy show with these words, but welcome to Colchester. Colchester is, of course, famous for many things. The first cultivated oysters in Britain were in Colchester, and also the first elephant in Britain. But luckily, the good people decided that swallowing oysters was a much better aphrodisiac than the other way. Colchester's also famous for being a big garrison town, lots of soldiers, and a massive university, so if the rifles don't get you, the fire extinguishers will. And of course, Colchester is now famous as being the venue for the first ever loose talk on television. Our audience tonight are going to be quizzing us on many topics of the week's news, from the conference in Cairo, the train strike, Sam Fox discovering God, the paparazzi discovering Prince Charles's Willie. I don't mean his eldest son. And to help us answer these questions and many more are our panel tonight: Jeremy Hardy, Mark Steele, Hattie Hayridge and Phill Jupitus. And we have a question from Peter Theodosius. Peter's over there, look, with a nice sort of rock and roll long hair.
Is John Major trying to make a complete or permanent idiot of himself over Northern Ireland?
Is John Major trying to make a complete or permanent idiot of himself over Northern Ireland? Well, of course, well, the question obviously is related to the long-awaited ceasefire. Colchester is an army town, so I'm not going to be taking the piss out of the soldiers. I'm not going to be taking the piss out of the IRA, ceasefire or no ceasefire. So, students, eh? They're tossers, aren't they? Mark, how do you feel about this one?
I think a lot of people do think that he's made either a complete or a permanent idiot of himself, because, after all, the reason that I don't think many people believe that Major can have created the ceasefire is because this bloke is a disaster. Everything he's touched for the last 2 years has just completely fallen apart. And you shouldn't let this bloke near Ireland. It's terrifying. He can't do the easy ones. They shouldn't let him near there. Seems to me it'd be like if somebody come in your house and spilt the tea and smashed the vase and broke a window and the television and then said, "Now I'm going to rewire your electrics." No, get out!
Jeremy?
Well, it is our mess, and so he has got to do something. You can tell it's our mess that we started it because of the town of what we call Londonderry, which in Derry is called Derry. And we went there and stuck London in front of it, which was an appalling cheek, really. And it's the only part of the empire where we actually had the nerve to do that, because you don't get London Delhi. Milton Keynes Nicosia.
Phill?
Well, John Major, right? The question's about John, isn't it? Now, the 3 words he said very early in office that kind of queered the pitch for me were, "I support Chelsea," and it's been downhill from there. Pertaining to the current situation in Northern Ireland, you see, the thing over there people aren't aware of, IRA ceasefire, right? Because the IRA are out there doing their bit, right, whatever it is they do, 50,000 people are employed because the IRA are active. 50,000! Mostly Protestants, right? OK, so what the IRA, by having a ceasefire, are in effect saying is, we're going to have to let a few of you go.
Hattie?
Well, John was a bit of a plonker this week, wasn't he, with old Ian Paisley. He gets him in there and goes, "Get out, get out!" And if you read it, it's John Major that actually got out of the room. He goes, "Get out, get out!" "Oh, I'll go then, if you're not going." I think if Jerry Adams has an actor, then John Major should have an actor to do his bit, really. If had Arnold Schwarzenegger there with "Hasta la vista, Paisley," he'd have been out.
I actually feel quite sorry for Jerry Adams. I think Jerry Adams tried to give up 5 years ago and the actor wouldn't have any of it.
You could almost sympathise with Paisley, though, when he said that Major wanted him to say, "Will you say I'm not a liar?" And Paisley said, "Well, you know, who can honestly say that about John Major?" And you had to, you know, the whole country think, well, Paisley has got a point this time. This time. But he is sadly deeply mad, Paisley, because I was listening to The World at One on Radio 4, as they do some months ago, after the Hugh Adams thing, And Paisley said, everyone seems to have seen this document apart from me. Mr. Major has seen it. Our President Clinton has seen it. The black man from Africa, Mr. Mandela, hasn't. I thought, Ian, do you want to know why the peace process is going to move on without you? Do you want to know? Imagine the nightmare scenario of an independent Ulster run by Paisley, welcoming African dignitaries. Expect you find it pretty cold here, don't you? Is it true what they say about you blackfellas? Is it?
What? You know, there's one thing, whenever Isla's on the news and you see all the murals, and I think they are brilliantly impressive, not like English graffiti, just Chelsea and stuff like that. I think it's brilliant, like a whole city of Rolf Harris's they got in Belfast. Hundreds of thousands of kids running around with little pots of paint going up to walls going, give them a little bit of a balaclava there. What with an Amalot rifle, can you tell what it is yet? He's a little gorilla boy, isn't he?
Peter, you asked the question, do you think the ceasefire's going to last?
No.
You don't, so you wouldn't fancy booking a holiday in Ireland just at the moment then?
Not at this moment, no.
At any time. Has anybody here really think the ceasefire's going to last? You did. Is that because you're optimistic or because you want to get on television?
Bit of both, really.
Good. You should be a Liberal Democrat, bit of both, really. Well, on the one hand, I agree with you, but on the other hand, he's right as well, isn't he? Well, there we are. I think we've solved that problem. And all it took to solve that problem was 5 comedians and their jokes. And we move on to a question now from Derek Davis. Where's Del? Derek. Sorry, Del. Derek. Can we have your question, please, Derek?
Yeah, sure. Should the Education Minister also insist on compulsory testing for MPs?
Yeah, what sort of testing would you make?
Yeah.
All sorts of, terrible thing. Yeah, because this week we had the news that they are going to start testing 11-year-olds again, which I think is fair enough, because if you can't test on bunny rabbits, kids will do. Come here, son, shampoo, is that Sting? Oh, dear.
Tests for MPs? Well, I don't know, because when they're writing in crayon, you know, holding it like that...
Yeah.
It's gonna get...
Not allowed sharp objects, are they?
Yeah,
Shouldn't
no,
they?
they're not, it's true. But I'm not in favour of all this testing thing, because they say they want to give school places to 4-year-olds, and the obvious reason is get them in and make them sit exams, the poor little sods. You can turn over your fuzzy felt farm papers now. Horrible. And they'll be testing, at school sports day, they'll be disqualifying kids because of too much Tixie Licks in their blood.
What? Tixie Licks?
Tixie Licks.
What's Tixie Licks?
Tixie Licks is kids' drugs.
Sounds like...
You're on them, Jeremy, aren't you?
Tixie Licks.
Couple of lines of Calpol and a shot of Tixie Licks.
Tixie, it sounds like oral sex for hobbits. Tixie Licks.
Listen, when you're 4 years old, it's as good as oral sex, that you
It'd be hard testing the kids around my way. It's like, the question's like, what's 18 plus 62? Who wants to know?
They're obsessed with tests, though. They're like, you know, just imagine they get younger and younger. So this baby being born. Oh, hello, madam. We're just taking away your baby for tests. Ah, if it takes 3 men 5 days to dig a hole, stop crying, slap.
Do they do any good, these tests, though? Because the way that my mum and dad sort of answered questions when I was a kid, that generation had all these exams. I mean, they can't have answered the exam questions the way they answer them now. If they'd have got an exam question saying something like, why can't you get electricity from wood? That generation must have put, because you can't. Where are the pyramids? Where you bloody well left them?
Phil, you're a parent, aren't you?
I'm a dad.
Amazingly.
Yeah.
2 pit bulls and a Doberman, isn't it?
2 pit bulls and a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, actually. All right.
Dexter?
It's weird, because I quite like about this test thing was apparently, if, like, the class does really bad, they can sack the teacher. So, like, you could all get together and go, that Mr. Ferris who teaches geography is a bit of a wanker, isn't he? Come on, let's all get together, right? Let's all get together and just do badly and come in. Right, children, this is a school inspector. I don't know what a rift valley is. Brilliant. Then they have to sack him. And that's another thing. I think they should extend it to the entire school. If you've got a school with loads of skinny kids, you should sack the dinner ladies, I think.
Did you have... Who asked the question? You asked the question, Derek, didn't you? Did you get exams at school? Did you take loads of exams?
No, I missed that day.
You missed that day. Because I had some of the most bizarre teachers in the world at my school. I really did. I had the priest at my school, this is true, when I was 12, he told the whole class, he said, the reason lesbians wear dungarees, he said, is to hide the tails. Right? This is true. So at the age of 12, you think, oh, what's a lesbian? Where is it? Yeah. So I went home and I said to my dad, Dad, do lesbians have tails? He said, not in the videos I watch, son, no.
Actually, talking of teachers, could I take an opportunity? Mr. Larby, I don't know if you're still alive, you taught me when I was 11 years old. Do you remember Mr. Peter Larby? Yes, at Farnham Boys Grammar School. Yes, you're a bit of a bastard, aren't you, Mr. Larby? I have waited 22 years for this chance, Mr. Larby. You made boys with asthma run cross-country, didn't you? I hope you're having trouble breathing now, Mr. Larby, in your sheltered accommodation. Sorry, loves, I feel much better for that, I really do.
Did anybody here? I mean, how's that who really suffered from idiot teachers at school and still resent it now? You do. What's the lady over there with the brown... What's your story of it?
Well, at my primary school, my head teacher, on a Friday morning we had tests, and he used to go around slapping this cane against his leg. And now, sort of like if I'm at work or something and I hear a loud bang, I just jump. You know, it sort of stayed with me.
Oh my God! Well, I'd steer clear of loud. I'd steer clear of loud bangs if I was you, frankly. We move on to our next question, which comes from Paul Warburton. Have I pronounced that right? Paul?
Paul?
Where's
Yeah, that's
Paul?
how you say Paul.
I know, where's Paul Warburton? Where are you?
Right,
Oh, sorry, hidden by the camera.
It's Albert, actually.
Albert?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Could ACAS, you reckon, solve the train dispute by bringing in the fat controller of Thomas the Tank Engine?
I don't think they'd quite get away with bringing an animated character in there, would they? What do you think, Phil?
Well, it's the thing that strikes me as quite funny is that the Labour Party, you remember the party of the trade unions, they got John Prescott saying that he supports the principle of the strike, but he can't support the strike itself, which must be great. You got John going, now then, right, okay, right, now then, yeah, right, no, I support the principle of Blackburn Rovers playing football. The fact that they exist as a team, I can support that, but I cannot support them in their battle against Southend on Saturday week. It's like that, it's just stupid, it's
So I quite like John Prescott. At least John Prescott looks like he'd chin you if you called his mum a slag. Right.
I was quite pleased, actually, because although your man, what's his name, Blair's been... What's his name? That says it all about Tony Blair, doesn't it? He won't support them. But the TUC have supported them. But the reason they supported the signalmen, which I thought was a bit odd, was John Monk said this is a thoroughly modern strike. So presumably they're terribly embarrassed, trade unionists, about those awful passé 70s strikes. And there's their photographs. Oh, it's so embarrassing. Look, those flares and that picket line.
I don't know, what's the matter with the trade union leaders now? Because at least in the old days, they used to look a little bit different and sound a little bit different from the management. Like, they'd come on with their shirt buttons done up wrong and have all gravy down their tie and stuff. And then they make these speeches where they got everything wrong and say, but we have appealed to Majesty's governmentation about the unnecessaryment of the longevityness of this dispute thingment. But now it's all supposed to be just middle class, isn't it? They're all, oh, Tony, Bill, we must do arbitration sometime.
Yeah, you could go to number 10 for beer and sandwiches, and they'd be there for vol au vents and creme de menthe, really. I think the fat controller actually should run the strike, because it couldn't be any worse, and they'd get in anybody they can in to run the signal boxes, wouldn't they?
It's all management volunteers. They've got all these management volunteers. Well, I say all of them. They appealed to the management and said, you know, we need people to man the signals, and they sent this nation. Five responded and said, in fact, the actual report was less than 5, so we're talking 4, right? 4 guys, and you can imagine they're going to be the most awful sort of enthusiasts. Oh yes, marvellous, yes. Could I have a hat? You know, the peaky hat thing, and a whistle. Could I have a whistle too, and flags? I mean, because I love the Railway Children. What a film. I would take off my petticoat and stop the train.
And the thing is, I think people support the strikes because they know that it's the management that's made the service so dreadful over the years, Like, why is every train line I know in Britain, I reckon, has got this one little bit on the line where the train just stops in between stations and sits there for hours. And people go through all them phases of annoyance, like after about half a minute where they're going, and it gets to sort of like, type noise. Then after about 5 minutes, someone gets up and pushes the window down, don't they, and looks out, like as if you're going to be able to see what it is causing it. Like, oh, there's a lion on the track. Oh, is that what it is? And then eventually it makes that noise to irritate you even more. It goes... I think it's no wonder people
Mark, can I just stop you for a second? Because we've got a question from the audience here. Can you just, hang on, wait for the camera. There's a guy there on the end of the row with the tie on.
Why aren't Paris Match interested in British rail management? Because if they want to really photograph some big pricks...
Hey, come on, you've got another one, mate. Nob Horton.
Now, this is true, because Anne Clwyd, a Labour MP this week, described Bob Horton as being worse than Eddie the Eagle, which I think is unfair to a very fine sportsman.
Has to be said, though, the RMT have to take the share of blame for not winning it, because this is why the public might start to drift away from them, because they could have gone all out and won it, because it's not a proper strike. It's not like the strikes. When I was young, we had glorious strikes. Some of you young people are too young to remember that. Oh, we had some strikes in those days, because you'd never get to school. It was marvellous, because the trainmen would be out, the busmen would be out, there'd be power cuts, or you'd get to school and the miners would bring the government down, so it'd be an instant election, so school would be a polling station, so you'd be sent home. It was brilliant. And now they have one-day strikes. How can you have a class struggle on flexi time?
I just had a great little Eddie the Eagle manning a signal box. Here comes the 4:15 now.
And we'll move on to our next question, which comes from Diane Colley. Where's Diane? Put your hand in the air, Diane. Where's Diane? Diane.
Good evening.
Hello, Diane. Are you right with this, Diane? That's very... You have watched Question Time.
She's been in front of the mirror all afternoon.
Yeah. Hang on, could you wait till... Hey. Leave it. Diane, could we have your question, please?
Yes. Should the population conference in Cairo call him Mrs. Bobbitt?
Oh, dear.
That's a yes then, is it?
It's actually well, it's an interesting question, because I think the control of the population should be taken very seriously. My wife and I agree. In fact, every night we have conversations about the control of the population, along the lines of, have we got any condoms? No, we'll go to sleep then. But I don't know, what you asked, Diane, do you think, do we need to control the population before we start?
Yes, I do. I think they need further education. We're not allowed in this country. For instance, there was an article on the news last night in this area about a family who have already got 10 children, and they're not allowed to have any more.
Really? Why? Who's stopping them?
The doctor.
Right.
Isn't that slightly beyond the remit of the
Yes, I almost hesitate to delve into the details of the...
Has he got a car alarm that goes off?
Phones them up whenever they're shagging. Stop that now! This is your doctor. Get that out of there. Stop it.
I wonder if the doctor knows what's causing it.
Jeremy.
It's brilliant, this population conference, because there are 15,000 delegates there. And there'll be 20,000 by Monday. But I think it's a bit patronising, this notion that we've got, that we and the... It's interesting you say someone here with 10 children, because people have got this idea, the trouble is these stupid foreigners having all these children, and if we give them birth control, it'll all be all right. See, 2 years ago, this was the rat-infested slums of the Philippines. But since the RUD came, what was once a shanty town is now a theme park and leisure centre. Carlotta here used to be a simple drudge, but since her RUD was fitted, she now has a successful hairdressing business.
What I find frightening about the Cairo conference, because I don't think population is the problem, it's just the Pope's influence in it. This is a man whose whole philosophy is to stand there saying abortion is not normal, disgusting, filthy practice is not a normal thing for human to do, contraception not normal, disgusting, filthy, putrid business, homosexuality not normal, disgusting, filthy, putrid, mucky practice of the devil. queuing up to kiss gold plate, confessing all impure thoughts to man through curtain, and taking piece of bread and wine and pretending it is 2,000-year-old dead person, perfectly bloody normal.
You used to write scripts with Stavros. I'll tell you one thing about the Pope.
That's my Geordie Pope.
I'll tell you, if you want an effective contraceptive, you put a picture of the Pope up. Oh dear. I went out of this, honestly, I went out of a woman once, and you finally, like, you spend hours cracking it, and you get to it, and there's a picture of the Pope, and oh, crud, the eyes follow you all around the room, and you go, oh. Hattie?
I think it's quite good in this conference. Out of these 15,000 delegates, I imagine that 14,990 of them were blokes. And the main bit of this conference is about contraception. I just imagine them all sitting there squirming in their seats, going, is that what happens? Put that old rusty bed spring up. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Ooh, no.
There's a terrible... Eh? Sorry.
Coils,
Put that rusty bed spring up.
we send out to the third world that are like...
Yeah, but surely people would realise they've sent us a rusty bed spring by mistake.
No.
They've sent us a magic roundabout character by mistake. Yeah.
Carburettor, anything.
Phil?
Mrs. Bobbitt, yeah, I think what an example, what an example. Someone I would like to introduce Mrs. Bobbitt to is Alan Clark for a kick-off. Thank you. Fundamental point here that we must all be aware of in the whole population control deal is that shagging's a laugh. Never forget that. That's make it a bit less glam, maybe. Just say, oh,
a laugh?
Boring.
Laughing? That's not how you woo a woman, is it? So I'll tell you what, that'd be a laugh. I'll tell you what, if we finish for 2:15, we can get down to watch the start of Southend now. On for Messi!
Don't applaud them! They're against us and our kind. My people! I'll show to you.
Phil, come on, sit, Phil, come on, sit down, it's all right. Don't
I laugh all the time.
Gently. Gently now, that's it, gently.
One thing that occurs to me is that there are all these babies in the world that probably would be better if they didn't get born. And people just drop babies all the time. But when you actually start to try for a family, darling, should we try for a family? Yes, darling. You start trying, it becomes impossible. You can't do it. And you find out all these things like your sperm count is affected by heat, caffeine and alcohol. So you can't soak your testicles in Irish coffee before sex. And you're told you can't. And you're told that there's really only 2 days when the woman can conceive, and actually it's 2 hours which is the perfect time, and you mustn't have a bath, drink or smoke, and you just got that 2 hours. And yet, if you're 17 and you have 46 Benylin and Ponos, 1 shag, triplets.
And we move on to our final question, which comes from Kerry Quincy. There's Kerry right in the front. Look at that, like a halo, like a little saint. Kerry, what's your question, please?
Right. Will female vicars be following Samantha Fox's example to boost the church's flagging popularity?
I love the idea of Samantha Fox being born again. I just hope the doctor slapped her really hard this time.
I'd say defo. I'd say that parish magazines are going to be very horny now. It'll be luscious. Reverend Suzanne Busty certainly has a big pair of pulpits. I don't suppose many chaps would want to alter this figure. But,
I want to see her go to communion with the old pouty lips.
Tits out for the Lord. I have to criticise Sam Fox, though, because she said that she's going back to naked modelling now. She said because the Lord gave her a beautiful body. Well, the Lord gave me hemorrhoids. We don't go around showing them to people.
She's like these other models that latch onto an old bloke, wait until he dies. She hasn't got much hope with him, really.
And now the gospel according to Samantha.
And the Lord got upright and he went out. Now shut up And he went to this mountain, and like there's loads of people there, right? And there was no Burger King Pizza Hut or nothing, and they were all hungry. And he whipped up a buffet with just some fish and loaves, an old Devon recipe.
I just want to say, I want to see her hosting a new Sunday afternoon religious programme, Dongs of Praise.
Trials on Sunday.
No, she will end up on one of those late-night programmes, isn't it, where you get these trendy vicars that come on about midnight and say, well, praying to the Lord doesn't have to be all just kneeling and misery, you know, and to prove it, here's Alvin Stardust, and...
I'd like to see her convert to Islam and carry on the modelling career then. What a lovely pair of eyebrows that woman's got. Come on, let's have some nose, Samantha. Oh, God, gorgeous, look at that. Bit of elbow. And on that note, we'll leave that question, and we move on to our final round, which is a tiny roundup from all our guests, a little tiny news item they may have seen, caught their eye. Mark, you're going to start.
Well, Kevin, my story is...
It's funny already.
My story is about the Great British Police, who are known generally for their sarcasm, and I'll give you an example. I mean, I was stopped going the wrong way down a one-way street in Croydon, and I thought, oh, here we go, and he's come up, knocked on the window, wound it down, given it all that, oh, yeah, sign not big enough for you, sonny, woo, and all that. But here is a story about PC Colin Phipps, aged 28, who is accused of breaking the nose and cheekbone of Jason Stubbs while arresting him for non-payment of a fine. And Mr. Stubbs described the scene as he was being arrested. One policeman fell over as he tried to get to me, and the other police car crashed. It was a hilarious picture, and I was laughing so much my eyes were closed. At this point, I was grabbed by the arms and hit by PC Colin Phipps violently in the face. The hearing continues. So maybe they were guilty, maybe they were innocent, I'm not.
Hattie.
You probably saw it in lots of ones. It's about this junkyard that's orbiting the Earth. Like all these old bits of rubber gloves and everything that astronauts have left. Quite why they had rubber gloves up in space, I'm not quite sure. All this old junk and crap is orbiting the Earth and getting in the way of everything. So I thought I might like to, you know, be an astronaut, go up there, because I'm looking for a second-hand spin dryer and it might be a good way to find one.
Phil.
Yeah, this thing regarding about microwaves that can think, right? And it can think so much that you still have to program it and tell it how long to cook for, right? That's how clever it is. What's it going to think about? Oh, I think I'll go, ooh.
Jeremy.
Devil's tumble dryer microwave, that's what I say. I wouldn't have one. I've got my bit of paper, which is got a bit moist because it's been next to my thigh. And look, now, you see, here's some fish, because male fish are being feminised by river pollution. Artificial chemicals are stimulating estrogen, and it says that male fish, it says here, Professor Sumpter says that male fish, they behave as though they are female. So I suppose they try and swim with their faces out of the water.
Is it not also true that female whelks are growing penises as well, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes, I am to know this as a fact, yeah. No, the dog whelks are growing, female dog whelks are growing, no, they're growing penises because the lead on the, that they use in the paint on the boats is turning them into males, and whoop, out, yeah, and off they go.
Right, mustn't that be a bastard, taking someone out for dinner and the starter's got a bigger cock than you?
My favourite story is actually from Colchester, so I hope you've seen it, which is about the woman who knocked over a 10-year-old boy and is trying to sue the 10-year-old boy for damaging her car, which is a bit steep as she was driving through a sandpit at the time playing ice cream music. Well, that's all this week from Colchester, the cultural capital of Essex. Next week, we're going to be in Glasgow, the ex-cultural capital of Europe. In the meantime, I'd like to thank my panel this week, who have been Phill Jupitus, Jeremy Hardy, Hattie Hayridge, Mark Steele. I'm Kevin Day. Thank you for watching. Good night.
BBC Two, brace yourself for a little more loose talk.
welcome to Loose Talk, which tonight comes from Hull. Our panel tonight, backed by popular demand, the biggest comic in all the land, Phill Jupitus, from Radio 1's Fist of Fun, Richard Herring, star of The Real McCoy, Felix Dexter, and star of Loose Talk, Jeremy Hardy. We're going to be very polite to each other tonight because today, you may or may not know, is National Courtesy Day. It's good to be polite, National Courtesy Day. I wasn't asked whether I want it to be National Courtesy Day. We were just told it was going to be National Courtesy Day. Wankers.
Well, you're going to do a bank job on National Courtesy Day. Where you're going to go, oi! Out with a chill! Please?
I had an experience with extreme courtesy when I was much younger. I was about 16 or 17. I got a slapping off a copper. And he said to me, I'm sorry, mate, it's nothing personal. It's just I didn't like your face. True story.
You tried to be courteous at times, help people out, like hold a door open for somebody, but that's no good, because it just makes them run, doesn't it? You hold the door, they just start, and they just that crappy sort of walk running thing. Pointless.
What do polite people do on National Courtesy Day? You know, like Mormons and Quakers, who are like, they're so polite you want to punch them. Anyway, it's national... They're either totally and utterly, they like just lay in bed going, thank you, please, thank you, please. Or perhaps they have a day off going, oh, bollocks, bollocks! No,
do you know what they do, Phil?
What do they do?
They do let you punch them. It's good. I'm not going to say it.
Later on, we'll be getting the answers to our punchline competition. Earlier this evening, we asked our audience to supply a punchline for this joke. What is the difference between Boris Yeltsin and Barbara Cartland? So, for example, you could say the difference between Boris Yeltsin and Barbara Cartland is that Boris Yeltsin talks bollocks but has alcohol as an excuse. See what the audience came up with later on. And we'll move on to our very first question, which comes from Ed Brownlee. Where's Ed? Ed, where are you? Put your hand up, Ed. It's right over there. You've got Ed on the little sticks like this. Ed, your question, please.
Will it finally emerge that the Princess of Wales has actually slept with her own husband?
What a sick young man you are. It's an awful, horrible idea, isn't it?
Would he try to sell a book about it, then?
Yeah, obviously, as Felix said, the question, I presume, is about Major James Hewitt, who apparently slept with, well, didn't sleep with, shagged, is it? Whatever it looks Princess Diana, and then wrote a book about it. Now, I'm sure you may have read this, that by medieval law, it's still possible to be hanged for sleeping with the wife of the Queen's son, i.e. the son and heir. And also, this is very true, by medieval law, you can be hanged for playing football. So if she just sleeps with John Barnes, we'll have the bugger. I don't know, Phil, what do you think of this terrible kiss and tell story?
Well, have you noticed his ears are a little bit bigger?
Straight in there, weren't you? All the constitutional questions we could have talked about. No, oral sex.
And I don't mind her if she wants to shag. That's fair enough. Because you know, all the royals, they've got a state birthday and a real birthday. So obviously her state shag is Prince Charles, and she can have a private one if she wants. I think why not? You know.
Richard.
Yeah, what got me was the way the papers are all calling Hewitt a cad, but a bounder and a cad. And it's like that's the kind of word you used to describe someone like Dick Dastardly or you know, Terry Thomas. What a cad! You know, like what's Hewitt's done? You know, sleep with this woman who's psychologically vulnerable and then sell the story. You know, the word cad doesn't immediately spring to mind. Another word beginning with C does spring to mind. I'll give you a clue if you haven't got it. If you listen to Neil Kinnock when he's doing a speech, the way he pronounces can't, it's very, very similar. Listen to it.
Jeremy.
Sorry, you woke me from a reverie. No, string them all up. No, my opinion is it is appalling that a member of the royal family has been caught having sex with somebody to whom she is not related in any way. And she could have fallen pregnant. And then we could have a possible heir to the throne who is not a completely inbred banjo-twanging retard.
Felix.
The whole issue, I mean, there's a serious element to it. There's a kind of like hysteria, sort of hysteria about the royals' sexual habits. It's almost as if we didn't have the royals, we'd have to find some other group or some other individuals to focus this on. It might well be the majors. Can you imagine that? You know, like people claiming to have had sex with Norma. Don't talk about it, mate. We don't want to know. All right, keep it quiet.
You've got the book there, haven't you?
I have. I'm just looking through it, and there's nothing worth walloping over, but...
Such a charmer. Such a charmer.
I've got the book here, and at one point, it actually, she describes him, she says, a kindly and proficient man. That's cycling, that is. What, he did it on a bike and all? She gave him a badge at the end of it.
He could theoretically be hanged, and there are these things you'd be hanged for, treason being one. Another one is arson in the royal dockyards. And this is interesting, because I didn't know that the royals had any dockyards, because you can't really imagine them hanging around the docks, can you? Well, apart from one or two of them, obviously. But another thing he can be hanged for is piracy on the high seas, which presumably includes video piracy. So remember, video piracy is a crime. Do not accept it. Because it reduces your video watching pleasure and could lead to your newsagent being hanged.
Sounds like a bizarre sexual euphemism, isn't it? Arson in the royal dockyard. Where's Ed? I know it's very bizarre. He asked 5 of us for an answer. I'm going to ask you, Ed, for the answer. What do you think? Do you think that they were at it like...
Probably not, no.
You don't think so? Really? But we've hit the most naive man in Britain.
But Ed, check him out. What a babe magnet, eh? Girls looking for something oily to sleep with? Get yourself the Hewitt.
I can't believe he's got £3 million writing this book and has got to sleep with Princess Diana. That just seems so unfair. It's like having your cake and sort of smearing it all over your body and having it licked off. If you get £3 million for sleeping with Princess Diana, I mean, how much are you going to get if you shag the Queen Mother? That's what I want to know. And I'm available for that one as well. If you want, I'll split it with you, the money.
Sorry, have we got any other views in the audience? Because everybody's reading it. Where's that? There's a hand there. Oh, right over there in the corner. Keep going. Keep your hand up, mate, please, so we know where you are.
I'd like to know if Mrs. Hewitt is going to go back with Arthur and take revenge.
He wasn't married though, was he? What a plot line.
What we haven't taken into account, though, is that your woman, Diana, is deeply suicidal, and which must have been nightmare sleeping with somebody who makes so many pitiful attempts to kill themselves, like throwing herself out of bed. Oh, Cole, get back in. I'm trying to kill myself. I thought maybe that's what the sex was. She was actually just trying to kill her. She was trying to impale herself. Or maybe swallow poison.
Well, to end the round, what we're going to do, we're going to have a tabloid-style poll of the people. Our audience have got red and yellow cards. That's it. That's lovely. Get your cards ready. And if you think that he is a complete cad and bounder, as we said, I want you to hold up the red card. So after 3, 1, 2, if he's a complete cad and bounder, hold up the red card. 1, 2, 3.
Ooh.
That's quite a few.
Look, someone's held up a yellow card there. They misunderstood.
Yeah. So put the red cards down now. And the yellow card, thank you, sir. That's it. Now, this is the time, the yellow card time. Now, this is, if you, because he said, Major Hewitt said he was acting in the public interest. So if you think that he was acting in the public interest, on the count of 3, I'd like you to raise your yellow card. So 1, 2, 3. There's more than I expected, actually. The lady down there with the, right in front, that's it. Do you think he is acting in the public interest?
Yeah, I think he did. I think he did us all a favour, actually. Maybe he'll get rid of the whole royal family altogether.
Fair point.
Maybe.
Just as a matter of interest, before we do finish around, as a matter of interest, if you think he's just a money-grabbing little shit, hold both cards up. Yeah. No.
Can we give a little quick message, though, to the princess? Because she's probably watching and she's feeling a bit left out. Now, you're married in, it was your own mistake, you married them, right? But if you want to leave them, don't go copping off with some soldier, because they're just as bad, right? Posh gob from Santa's. You really want to say, kiss my sweet butt to the royals, Diana, cop off with a big dyke on a Harley Davidson and disappear into the sunset.
And our next question comes from Laura Dykes. Where's Laura? Laura's right at the back of the middle. Ready for Laura? Laura, your question is, please.
When Tony Blair was in Blackpool, did he ask for some 10p's to play on the machines?
Yes, when little Tony Blair, when he was in Blackpool, did he ask for 10p's to play on the machines? The Labour Party conference sadly spoilt for me now by the Lib Dems, because I'm just watching it all day thinking, come on, what's your cannabis policy now? Come on. Legalise it or not legal? Never mind unemployment, cannabis is what I want to know about. Although I do think trying to renounce Clause 4 smacks of the sort of thing you do after a couple of joints. Like 2 o'clock in the morning when the mate goes, here's one. Jeremy?
Well, he's got himself into a pickle because the party's voted for Clause 4, and actually he's been trying to redefine socialism, so I brought along the concise, God knows what the wordy one is, the concise Oxford Dictionary. There's a new edition for the 90s, so it's kind of a 90s Labour Party feel to it. And I've looked up the word socialism to find out the definition, because he's redefined the word now. Socialism means political and economic theory of social organisation which advocates that the community as a whole should own and control the means of production, distribution and exchange. That's what it says. That's what socialism means. You can't say I'm a socialist but it doesn't apply to the economy. It's like saying I'm a philatelist but it doesn't apply to stamps.
Phil?
Well, you look at Tony Blair up there on his little green platform and he's got the microphone up there and he's all keen and everything, and the first thing that flashed through my mind is Robin driving the Batmobile. You know what I mean? Don't look right. Don't look right to me. You look at that boy and you think somewhere there's a paper round waiting to be done.
Felix?
Just a small point to Jeremy. What you'll find, Jeremy, is that most political parties don't make their manifesto from reading the dictionary. So,
no, let's look up. No, we'll start with the Aardvark party, actually.
Just a small point there. But, yeah, I think that Tony Blair is an alien. I don't know if you saw during the conference, there was one point where he was smiling like this. Now, that to me is very, very suspicious about the man's origin. The point is, you see, if you were to look at real working-class credentials, I think you have to look at Neil Kinnock, right? I want Neil Kinnock back, because that man actually had a fight in an Indian restaurant. I'm sorry, you've got to do that and prove you're working class for my liking.
The only reason you don't like Tony Blair is you can't do his voice.
That's right. As a leader of the Labour Party, I'd like to say, I'd like to bring back.
Felix, can you do him saying can't? But what's upset me about the conference is the way that everyone's bringing up whenever they can't quite get their argument across, they bring up John Smith and going, if John Smith were here today, he would have voted for the minimum wage. So and they're all going, oh, well, we better vote for the minimum wage then, because John Smith would have done. And they're doing this in all the arguments, like they're going, if John Smith were here today, he'd have wanted us to split the bill for this curry. Even if some of us had only had the starter, Robin Cook, yes.
I think, because Prescott, of course, is from Hull, isn't he? East Hull or West Hull, I don't know. No, because I didn't see it, but you said Prescott was behaving very strangely.
Well, yeah, he was. During Tony Blair's speech, he was actually going, bollocks! Jump up, little squirts! I should have been leader!
Tony Blair said the most amazing thing in an interview in, I think it was the Sunday Times last week, when he said the trouble with the Labour Party at the moment is they have too many policies, far too many policies. He said, we have policies on everything from world disarmament to stray cats. Now, what is the Labour Party policy on stray cats?
They must never be allowed to record a record again. That's their policy. And I agree with them wholeheartedly.
Let me tell you, anyone in this room could win the next election as a leader of the Labour Party. Just rush it through, get in, go, say, I'll do it. Just, come here, Phil, come here. Okay, Felix, Mr. Dexter, Felix Dexter here will be playing the part of Prime Minister John Major. I want you to imagine John Major's on the steps of number 10 Downing Street being interviewed about a matter of the day. I should be playing the part of anyone that wants to be leader of this country, Prime Minister, at the next election. Okay, right?
Well, yes, as the leader of the Conservative Party, I think it should be made very clear that we have no intention whatsoever of introducing higher taxation, and it is our policy to spread throughout the country a system of equal rights for people, regardless of their race, sex, colour or creed. And in fact, can I stop now?
And we'll move on to our next question, which comes from Alan Glover. Where's Alan? Oh, big, firm, strong hand up there,
Thank
Alan.
you.
Your question is, please, Alan?
Right, now that the police may be armed with pepper spray, will the bill turn into a cookie programme?
Yeah, it's rather bizarrely, I think, the police in certain areas of Britain this week are testing pepper sprays, which are great pepper sprays, that actually stop the criminal and prevent cats from pissing on his face. It seems a bizarre thing to arm the police with, though, Jeremy, don't you think?
Well, initially I thought that sounds quite good, arm the police with a whole range of condiments, you know. He's not talking, Sarge. Needs something, try coriander. Because the French riot police do a marvellous vinaigrette. But no, I thought it sounded all quite jolly until I saw the thing on the telly with the copper getting it in the face, and I'm not so sure now. It looks terrifying.
Did you see that? Did you see the news item? It's brilliant, because they're all the police. They got this Chief Inspector Jerry Allen or someone to do you know him? He was all swagging around going, oh, we're going to test this, I'm going to get this knife, test this thing. And they sprayed it in his face, came out really cool. Yeah, come on, and he was, ah! And it was like Christopher Mayhew in that thing where he had to take the LSD on air. He was going, my face is burning. I can't breathe. Snot pouring off his face. My eyes feel like they've been fused together with fire. I reckon they've just got a grudge against this bloke. You know, I mean, I think they're going to start testing him. Yeah, we thought this new one, lynching criminals. Let's have a go at that one. Go on. Oh, yeah, I'm unable to appear to wet my soul.
Phil.
Radical proposal from me. I think a cookery programme, forget that, mate. Abolish the police. Abolish the police, replace them with swimming pool attendants. Just have a big chair on every street, right? Someone sat up the top of it, Fred Perry, trunks, flip-flops, just sat there, like...
I mean, it's not just a pepper spray. I mean, there was a suggestion that the police should be armed with guns, you know, which I think that's a pretty good idea, really, because that would save me a fiver having to rent crap videos if I knew I could go up the high street and see people being shot for real every time I went out. No, but really, the idea of it is, presumably, is, hey, we'll arm the police and the robbers will go, oh, dear, the police have now got guns. This is really terrible. I was going to do something naughty, but I'd better not now, because they might shoot me. Well, they're not going to go like that at all, because what they'll do is they'll get bigger guns, and what I'm scared about is that the whole thing is going to just escalate to a ridiculous extreme, you know, so you go to the bank to take some money out, and a cruise missile will come flying through the wall.
The thing about the police being armed is that a lot of them don't want to be armed themselves. They're against having guns, because while you can give a suspect a good kicking without marking his face, bullet holes are a dead giveaway, aren't they? Because even the wackiest judge is going to have a hard time believing that the suspect fell onto several live cartridges.
Before we move on to our next question, we have another letter, or I have a letter, that I feel honour-bound to read you out, because it's not particularly nice about me. We were talking last week about the family and about childbirth, and this letter comes from Mrs. Catherine Chapman from Southend, I think it says. It says, Dear Kevin, last week you said that childbirth probably didn't hurt very much. Didn't say that at all. I said it probably didn't hurt as much as shaving, is what I said. She goes on to say, it's a very terse letter. She goes on to say, may I suggest you lubricate a bowling ball,
I didn't want to hear this.
insert it in your rear end and see if your attitude changes.
Piece of cake, nothing to it. Just getting your fingers out afterwards.
We have another question now, which comes from Philip Buchan. Where's Philip? Hang on, just wait for the microphone. That's it. Your question is, please?
Instead of handling a petition to John Major, should pensioners have used it as cheap fuel?
Yeah, good question. VAT was put on fuel in the same budget as VAT was taken off racehorses, so the obvious solution is to chuck racehorses on the fire, see how they burn.
I think what happened, it was 3,000 old age pensioners took that petition into John Major. Imagine getting stuck behind that lot on the pavement on the way to work, eh? But they had some good chants. They had, what do we want? Can't remember. When do we want it? What'd he say? And 2, 4, 6, 8. What would we appreciate? A nice cup of tea and a sit down. Bit parched.
Jeremy?
I think it's brilliant, old people becoming militant, because people say that you get more right-wing as you get older. I don't see why you should. I suppose, well, your brain cells die would probably make that happen. So I think it's brilliant that they're not becoming right-wing. Old people are now the hard left in the country. And that's brilliant, because also it's keeping their brains alive. And because demographically, we're an ageing population. And the trouble is that unless our brains are kept alive, we all retire to the seaside, is what old people tend to do, retire to the seaside. And therefore, as the population gets older, the edges of Britain will start to bend downwards, forcing the Midlands up till Wolverhampton is several thousand feet above sea level. Although that would make it less accessible, which is probably a good thing.
A doctor said very recently that old people, in order to stay healthy, should have an active sex life, up to 1995. Which, I think it's a great idea. It's just I can't imagine my granny, because I just can't imagine her taking her coat off for a start. No matter how hot it is, that coat's staying on, so the bedroom sex...
Yeah. I can. I actually read that. I read that.
Did you?
I read a report recently which said that old people just are having fabulous sex lives, really, really good, which sort of made me a little bit jealous. Jealous, yeah. But then something else occurred to me, which was that, I don't know, do you ever see these adverts where, in the Sunday supplements, where there's like an old lady lying at the bottom of the stairs, supposedly like she's fallen down or something, for alarms. But in fact, what's occurred to me is it's nothing to do with alarms at all. She's just totally shagged out. The woman can't shag anymore, trying to deceive us.
They are dirty devils, old people, because the thing is that they pretend to be shocked by things, so we assume that they're prim, and they're not prim at all. Old people have done everything. They must have done. They can't just have read The People's Friend for 80 years. They've done it all, and if you give them a couple of drinks and press them on it, they'll admit it. Oh, yes, dear, done it, dear. Up the bum, done it, dear. Well, it was wartime, yes. Your granddad came home in the blackout. I never rolled over in time. Happy days.
Time now for the long-awaited results of our punchline competition. Earlier on, we asked our audience to provide a punchline for this joke. What is the difference between Boris Yeltsin and Barbara Cartland? And we have some of the funniest here. Some of them. The first one is from Tony Connor. Tony Connor says the difference between Boris Yeltsin and Barbara Cartland is Boris Yeltsin writes better fiction. Ooh. And these are some of the best, ladies and gentlemen. Glenn Cook, this is one from Glenn. Glenn Cook says, one looks after Mother Russia, and the other knew Mother Russia when she was just a slip of a girl. Philip Buchan suggests that the difference between Boris Yeltsin and Barbara Cartland is that one drinks a bucket of vodka a day, the other uses a bucket of makeup a day. Kev Billany, that's a good name, Kev Billany. He just says, there's no lead up to this, just Barbara Cartland has her eyebrows trimmed more regularly. A bit of a sulky one from Kev there, are you? The final one is from Steve Cantrell, who says, the difference between Boris Yeltsin and Barbara Cartland is that Boris wears underwear that will make Chernobyl fall out. Well, Glenn's is the... Where's Glenn? Glenn, well, Glenn, I'm pleased to tell you, Glenn, that you win a genuine prize, which you can collect afterwards. Ooh. You win, which is surely the country's worst. Sponsored brilliantly by some bloke's sweet shop.
Needless.
Because it's a whole city football shirt, and because they're nicknamed the Tigers, it's a rather fetching Ford Cortina Tiger scratch back.
Those were the shirts this year, and what we now also have for you as a prize, these are Hull's boots for next season.
Well, I'm afraid it's nearly time to leave Hull. Before we do go, I'd like to ask our panel to tell us about a story we didn't have time to cover this week. Who's first? Felix.
Well, my favourite story of the week was Boris Yeltsin not getting off the plane at Shannon Airport. I thought that was just absolutely brilliant. The guy was so pissed he couldn't get off the plane. I mean, if he was English, he'd be Oliver Reed, I mean, that would soon change the licensing laws, wouldn't it? But we all know this type of guy, don't we? He's the sort of guy who, when he's had a drink, he can do absolutely anything. So they showed some footage of him. He was in Berlin, and he saw a band. He saw a band, so he just went over to the band and grabbed the button. He went, like, conducting, I'll show you conducting, mate. And there was a microphone, goes, singing, I'll show you singing, mate. What I'm worried about is one of these days they're going to go, nuclear bombing, I'll show you nuclear bombing. 1-0, 1-0. You're going home in a nuclear ambulance.
I'm from an Irish family. Nobody could have told him what country he was in, because he was in the safest country in the world. If they just got off the plane and said, look, sorry about this, the president's a bit pissed, they'd say, ah, we all are, come on down. Come on down, it'll be fine. Jeremy?
Well, I noticed the BBC is going to do this thing called The Bard on the Box, different people doing bits from Shakespeare. And they're going to have Jimmy Knapp, apparently, this is true, doing bits from Julius Caesar. Well, we're going to get British round the table and something. And I thought, you cannot have the Bard done in a Scottish accent. The Bard was a Brummie. I'm sorry, he was from Stratford in the West Midlands. The only way to do Shakespeare is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this Betty Bass from time to time. The last syllable of the Georgie Chine.
Phil?
The Swiss Army, the guys that make the knives, have had to let their pigeons go because they had pigeons. In the event of nuclear war, all electronic communication would be, you know, up the Swanee. So they had 30,000 pigeons, and they said, "Come, our feathered ones, you are free." And these pigeons, I'm in the north, you know pigeons, they came straight back again. They can't set them free because they keep going, "Come, piss up! Bloody pigeon, get out of it!" And they keep coming back. So what's happened is the Swiss Army have had to move.
It's good, the Swiss Army pigeon, because it's got a corkscrew comes out of its ass.
It's the only pigeon you can use to get stones out of horses' hooves, isn't it?
Same joke, but with a sound effect later.
Which one will make it to the show?
Richard?
Yeah, well, this is another true thing. The Sunday Sport, which I read only for, you know, research for this show, obviously. They've got a competition. Now, most people give away sort of like books or, you know, something like that in competition. But this competition, the Sunday Sport, is one of their topless models wants to have sex with 10 Sunday Sport readers at the same time. You are allowed to, there's 2 places to just go along and sort of watch and see what happens. But 5 places have been taken already. It's sort of like an adult version of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I think there'll be a lot of Willy Wonkering going on there.
Make a great spot the ball competition, wouldn't it? Oh! Well, my story is a very moving story, I'm sure you saw. The pub landlord who sadly died and was cremated, and his final wish that his ashes were put into an egg timer to be placed on the bar of the pub that he was landlord of, which is very nice. And so far, people have respected his wishes, and his little ashes are in the egg timer. Well, I just think, England being England, how long before there's half an inch of lager in the bottom, a fag end, some Scotch egg, and then a student drinks it for a bit. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for from Hull tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Next week we'll be in Nottingham. In the meantime, please thank our panel tonight: Phill Jupitus, Richard Herring, Felix Dexter, Jeremy Hardy. You've been great. Thanks.
Never stuck for a few words. Larry Sanders is on BBC Two next.
The recipe for a social disaster.
You know mini Kievs? Yeah. On the menu, would they be under starters or main courses?
Tea. No, I think I'll need something a bit stronger.
The recipe for convenience. And innovation.
Think cheese, think peas, think cheesy peas. It's easy peasy with cheesy peas. Please.
Fast food? Know all the ingredients for the Fast Show, Tuesday at 10 on BBC Two.